Okay, so I want to help you guys visualize something. So about an hour ago, members of the Marmac Volunteer Fire Department, I tweeted a photo if you want to look at it, came to the spot where I am standing, and they spray painted an orange line here. This is an area that flooded during Hurricane Matthew and that people expect to flood as the Neuse River continues to rise. So an hour ago, there was no water where I'm standing right now. We're going to back up a little bit. Now I'll show you 30 minutes ago, I did a Facebook Live and I was standing at this line. There was no water in this spot 30 minutes ago. And we're going to back up one more time. This is where the water is now. So that just goes to show you the Neuse River has not crested yet. And that means the water has not reached the highest point that it's going to go to in this neighborhood. So that's why the Marmac Volunteer Fire Department has asked everybody that lives here to evacuate. The homes in this mobile home park, a lot of them are already underwater. I could see a car over there that's underwater. So they are doing their best to get people out and get them to safety before the water here gets any higher. The reason they spray painted these orange marks is so they could keep track of how quickly the water was rising. And to be honest with you, it was pretty remarkable to see how fast it's gone. So we're going to stay out here and we'll bring you another update in an hour and show you where the water has gone then. Reporting live in Wayne County, Colleen Quigley, CBS 17 News.
Some of the most significant flooding in our state during Hurricane Irene back in 2011 happened in New Bern.
CBS 17's Colleen Quigley spoke with homeowners there who are not risking the storm this time.
We're standing on a dock in the Trent River, and back in 2011 during Hurricane Irene, I'm told the water of the river came up so high you could only see about 1.5 feet of this pylon. Well, tonight the people who live here tell me they're afraid the water is going to become even higher during Florence, possibly over this. So today they spent the day preparing. This quiet community at the corner of the Trent and Neuse Rivers, now possibly in the path of a hurricane.
The time we wake up tomorrow, that dock out there is going to be underwater.
During Hurricane Irene, water crept toward Bob Emery's home.
The water came up to right there.
So he and his wife weren't taking any chances with Florence.
The forecast this time is for several feet at least of water in the garage. So we're trying to get everything up.
In downtown New Bern, business owners spent the day boarding up and sandbagging.
We made sort of quick work.
Jean Lloyd owns a bridal salon. She's afraid of potential storm surge, so she packed up all her dresses and moved them out.
So we want to protect, you know, it's really precious, a lot of the wedding gowns, and, you know, they're irreplaceable, really.
Bob and his wife say they're going to ride out the storm, but are anxious that this could be worse than the ones they've weathered before.
The next 48 hours or however many hours it is, with the wind howling and raining hard and wondering how high the water is going to come up, is not going to be any fun.
Craven County officials have issued a mandatory evacuation order, so if you're looking for a place to go, there is a shelter at the Sanford Army National Guard Center. Reporting in New Bern, Colleen Quigley, CBS 17 News.
Before the storm and now after the storm. And Colleen, it looks much different than it did before Florence came through.
Yeah, Angela, completely different than it did a couple days ago. This beautiful waterfront community now inundated with water, with debris like this. This is a dock that came ashore during the storm. There looks to be some houses behind that it slammed into the brick leading up to the houses and then somehow wedged its way in between the tree and the brick in front of these homes here. But you can see the barnacles on the bottom of it. I mean, this is intended to be in the water and it is now here on shore in front of these homes. You can't see it because it is so dark, but there's another part of it. It almost looks like it's snapped in half. There's another section behind us here. And one other thing I want to point out, photojournalist Dave Hatman tells me it's a trawler, but it's a boat. It's dark, but if you could see it in the distance, it's crashed into what appears to be, it appears to have crashed into a few power poles and is now sitting on the grass on top of a traffic circle. Obviously, at one point it was in the water and now it's here. So that just shows you the force of the wind and the waves of this storm and how it really just pushed things from the river up here onto the land in New Bern. So like we've been saying all night, the cleanup is going to be a long one for these folks when you've got things like this just kind of strewn about through the neighborhood.
Colleen, got to ask you, we had an email from a man named Richard. He was wondering about a place called Tryon Place in New Bern. Do you have any idea how Tryon Place is doing there?
If it's near the waterfront, it probably looks a lot like this. We can try and check it out, but again, it's just so difficult to navigate through here because so much of this area is underwater, and now that it's dark, and nobody has power, so it's just hard to see kind of the road and the water in the road here, but we can try and check it out.
Okay, another question for you. You were there before the storm hit. You heard people talking about how bad it was going to be. I'm sure you had a picture of what you thought it would look like in your mind. Has this storm, is this what you thought was going to happen?
You know, so I'm from New York. I'm from Long Island, and a couple of years ago, I lived through Hurricane Sandy, and part of my mind, in my memory of that storm on Long Beach in Long Island, when the ocean and the bay met, and it just left behind all of this debris and all of this sand. And kind of when we were standing over there earlier, it was very reminiscent of it to see a lot of the debris that had come up with the water, and then when the water receded, everything it left behind. But to me, the thing that people had told me about when it comes to New Bern and was kind of heart-wrenching to see today is all of the water that's still here and is going to be here for days because it hasn't stopped raining, and there is nowhere for this water to go at this point because the river is still so swollen, and all the tributaries are going to be swollen for days as the water continues to come down. So it's just really heart-wrenching, to be honest with you, to see these people's homes. And again, I can't reiterate to you enough, every single person we spoke to today said, yes, they have had flooding here. Yes, they went through Fran and Floyd and Irene and Matthew, but none of them expected this, and none of them have seen anything like this here before. I just keep thinking back to that one woman we spoke with earlier in the Rivers Bend neighborhood, Debbie, and her husband Jim. They were walking their dog, and I said, what are you guys doing here? They're pulling everybody else out. And she said, I'm a nurse. I need to be here. I want to be able to get to work, but we have lost everything. There is nothing left in our home. And that's just so many of these people tonight are dealing with this. They've got no power. They're probably not going to have power for some time. And like you can see, the cleanup, it's going to take a while here in New Bern.
And Colleen, that family that you talked to, they'd only been living there for a year. They had no idea that something like this could happen.
Exactly, and she said if it hadn't been the fact that they had their neighbor's key and their neighbor was rented out their house, she said they had to basically run, essentially, not to be dramatic, run for their lives to their neighbor's house because their house was so full of water. She said their fridge and things that they had placed up high thinking they'd be in a safe spot was kind of churning through their house when the water came in, and they had to go. They had to get out of there because it wasn't safe for them. And like so many families in that neighborhood, the volunteer fire department that was just 500 feet from that neighborhood, they said they had 100 people seeking refuge. They're seeking shelter that had to be evacuated by those crews doing those swift water rescues today. I mean, you've heard me say it a couple times now, but the city of New Bern, the officials had tweeted out early this morning that there were 150 people at one point that needed to get out of their homes. And again, the fire officials we were talking to said those people, like many people here, just didn't expect it to be this bad. They had watched the forecast, they knew the storm was coming, but they had never seen anything like this here in New Bern.
Colleen, thank you so much. You painted a picture that I don't think a lot of people have seen, but they do now. Colleen, thank you.
And Colleen, are you actually in Riverbend or are you in New Bern now?
No, Angela, we are right near downtown New Bern. We were trying to get to the area that we were earlier this week, but we couldn't because it's so full of water. But I want to show you over my shoulder. There's a family behind me in a house, and they are waiting to be rescued. I walked as far as I can down this street, but the water was up to my thighs, high on my thighs. It was just not safe to go anymore. They said this amount of water has happened in the last 2 hours. You can see there's a Mercedes, I think. The water is up to the wheel wells. They said this happened recently. I do see a boat, guys. I see a boat down there, an SUV, it appears, with a boat, hopefully coming to get this family. When I asked them, they said they called the police. The police initially said they couldn't come, according to the family, or they were working on it, that there was, well, there goes that boat. Okay, hopefully somebody comes back. They said that they had, the they had called the police and initially were told they couldn't come, and then were told that they had someone working on it to try and get them out of there. They said with the way the water is moving, if you guys could see, the wind is pushing it toward their house, and they said the water just keeps coming into the house and into the house. They said they have never had flooding like this before. Angela, when we were in Riverbend a little while ago, we heard the same thing from families there, from the volunteer fire department captain. They have never seen flooding like this in New Bern. You know, we knew that they were going to get flooding. They knew they were going to get flooding, but everyone I spoke to today said they did not anticipate anything like this happening here in New Bern. So we're going to stay out here, hopefully help track someone down for this family. There's at least 3 or 4 of them in that house again. And again, they said that this happened in the last 2 hours, that it wasn't like this last night or even earlier this morning because of storm surge. The water just keeps continuing to rise. Again, I walked as far back as I safely could before it just got too high, that it was impassable, really. So we're going to stay out here and hopefully help track somebody down for them. Back to you guys.
Colleen, we want to stay here with you. Obviously, hopefully somebody out there watching can help that family, can get them out of there. Colleen, have you been able to talk to anybody officially with the community? Steve Sprasia, when he came in earlier after being out there all morning, said he couldn't get anybody from the city or the community to go on record about what was happening. Have you heard anything?
So where we were in Riverbend was on Plantation Drive. It's a area right near several ponds, and we spoke with the REMS volunteer fire department Captain Dale. He is one of the captains for their medical response unit, and he was there. They had about 100 people that had been evacuated from their homes. And again, it's what I was telling you. They did not expect this amount of flooding. They said this area floods. When it rains, they get water. But in Riverbend, the area we were earlier, everyone there said they have never seen anything like this. Even the captain we were speaking with said they had never seen anything like this. They had, again, 100 people that they rescued along with the FDNY who was there in their swiftwater rescue boats. They were pulling people out of their homes because the water just got so high and it happened so quickly. They just weren't expecting it. And so he said they've actually run out of all of their supplies, and that he said to me, if they had to do tomorrow what they did today, rescue all those people, he doesn't know if they'd be able to do it. He hopes that those rescues in the Riverbend community, which is about 10 minutes from where we are now, he hopes they're done with those rescues. They think they got everybody out that they needed to get out. But again, where we are now downtown is much, much closer to the Trent and Neuse rivers. If you're familiar with New Bern, you know it's a beautiful community that kind of sits at the corner of those 2 rivers, and that they do anticipate flooding. Did anticipate flooding. When I was here earlier this week, you know, that's what they expected to see. But again, nothing like this. This is not what these people thought they were going to be dealing with. I don't know if my photojournalist Dave Hatman can pan over to this house over here. You see it's boarded up. It says, "Pray for us, go away, flow." We saw a lot of that at the businesses downtown, these houses like this. But again, just really took these families by surprise, I think, is what happened.
Colleen, you said you talked to those people. Set the scene. How many people are in that house, and how many people need to be evacuated? Is the water up to their waist as well?
Yeah, I can't walk down there. They can't walk. They can't come out. It's up so high, and they said it's creeping into their house. There's about, I think, at least 3 people, maybe 5. If I step out of the way, you can see some people by that Mercedes, and if you look, there's a woman trying to get into the driver's side of the car, and the water is up over the wheel well. Again, they just said this happened in the last hour or 2. So there are about, I would say, 3 to 5 people. It looks like all adults that I was speaking to, 3 adults in that house. And again, they said they called the police initially and were told nobody could get to them. And when they called the police again, they were told somebody is working on it. So they're now just waiting it out, hoping somebody comes to get them before the water continues to get even higher into their home. You could try and walk, but again, it was to the point. I walked up to that house next to it with the brick steps, and the water was at my mid-thigh, almost up to my hips. And if you're older, or just say, even not if you're older, I didn't feel safe walking any further, so I don't blame them for not wanting to walk out any farther than they are for their own safety and well-being.
Colleen, earlier we saw a boat being hauled in the back of a truck. Is there any sense that boat was there to help them?
It's hard to say, Marius, because this area, here comes a car. It's, yeah, I wouldn't go down this way, guys. It's flooded out. I wouldn't drive there. You're not going to be able to drive down. There's people trying to come through. All of the roads around here are flooded like this. We tried to go further. We tried to get into downtown Craven Street. It's the historic downtown, and you just can't get there because everywhere looks like this right now. So people, that boat could have been for them, but it's very likely that there are other families in this exact same situation further down in this neighborhood. This whole area here, I would say this pocket, is filled with water.
Colleen, such good advice there, telling that car to turn around, because the problem is if they were to try to drive through there, and even if they made it, that water is going to ripple into their house, and you know they may have like 4 inches of water. That could be 5 inches later, so you got to be extra careful.
Right, it wouldn't be, you know, this is like that old adage we tell people, turn around, don't drown. I mean, I don't think they would have gotten any farther in that car, but Angela, like you said, the wake from that car, the wake of the water would go into the house, and that's what the gentleman who was standing on his porch a little while ago was saying. The wake from the water plus the waves and the wind pushing it, it's just driving the water more and more into his home.
All right, Colleen, we're going to check in with you in just a little bit. Of course, we're hoping that
Yeah, that's right. So just producer, talk to me. Are we taking the video right now? So we have video that we want to show you from the... Okay, in a minute, we're going to show you some video of that rescue taking place. But if you were watching us, you saw I was here with the family that is in that house on the corner, and there were several families gathered around that car. And I had been talking to them earlier, saying they felt they were in a bad spot, some of the people that lived over there. So the great news is it looked like the National Guard came through in a big truck. They asked people, they said, do you want to come with us? We could take you to a shelter. So there were several people on the back of that, and we saw them waving. They were just happy to get out of here, out of where all this water is right now. Now the family, and here we go, I hear the video. Okay, so this is it. You can see this is I believe it's the National Guard that came through this neighborhood. Again, this whole area is just inundated with water. So it appeared that they were driving through, asking people if they needed help. I heard them shouting to the family, do you want to come with us? Do you want to come with us? And they were talking to the gentleman on the porch, but there were other families that did get on that National Guard vehicle and drove on out of here. They were waving. They were just happy, it seemed, to get out of where all of this water is. Now, the family that is in that corner house that I spoke to earlier, they said the water is approaching the house, but they feel okay right now. They said they got a phone number from the people with the National Guard that if they did feel unsafe, they will come back and they will get them out of there. But they said they were okay for now. But again, just to reiterate, a lot of people were really caught off guard by this level of flooding here in New Bern. So they expected it to flood, but nothing like this. And again, I'm told that the flooding that we're seeing here behind me happened in the last 2 or 3 hours, that the water just continued to rise from that storm surge. So the great news is the National Guard did get to the families that were back in this neighborhood, helped get them out of the way, and the other folks told me they are doing okay for right now.
Colleen, how's the weather now? It looks like it may be sprinkling, but is it still raining out where you are?
I would say it's not exactly a sprinkle, maybe a little bit heavier than a sprinkle, but compared to what we were seeing earlier today where it... Okay, let's get to the video, Angela. I do want to show you, and we'll come back to what the weather conditions are right now. Producer's telling me we do have the video of them waving. Let me know if we're going to take that for you right now, because it's great video of these families. Here we go. I can hear it on the back of that National Guard vehicle. You see them there waving, just happy to get out of here. Again, I can't tell you how many people said they were caught off guard by this water, and they were really nervous that it was going to continue to just keep rising like this, and they were going to have nowhere to go, really in dire straits. So good news is that those families got the help they needed. Now back to your question, Angela, the weather. So it is raining right now, as you could probably see, but compared to what we were dealing with earlier today, where it felt like you were getting pounded by the rain. At one point, it was almost horizontal. It was difficult to stand in. I kept trying to put my back to it and turn around, but there was nowhere really avoiding it. So this, actually feels okay. I mean, it's definitely raining, but it feels better than what it was earlier when it was pouring buckets.
We're looking at the radar over New Bern right now. I have to ask you, is the water still rising where you are right now?
Yeah, so let me show you this a little bit. So it's hard to say exactly. It looks like it's risen slightly, or pretty much, but the interesting thing is, so the river is in that direction, okay? And the water, if you see it, it's coming around this building, and the wind is still pushing it toward these homes. So that, I mean, that would be a great question for Wes to look at how the wind is coming in here. But to me, it looks like the wind is still pushing the water towards all of these homes. And that is what they were expecting, the storm surge from the water. So it does look like it's rising, not significantly since we've been out here, but there is definitely some activity with water being pushed further from the river this way, pushed further into these neighborhoods.
Now, Colleen, you were there as those people were rescued. Did they say anything to you? We saw them sort of chanting and cheering as they were driving by, but did they say anything to you specifically, or what was their reaction?
No, just happy to get out of here. Again, they didn't expect this, so they weren't prepared for this level of water, is my understanding from everyone I've spoken to. So they were just happy to get out of there. And again, the gentleman in that corner house said that they feel okay for right now, but that, you know, there is a concern that this could get worse later on, but they said they do feel okay for right now.
Okay, and Colleen, I can tell just looking behind you, that Mercedes that's behind you, you can see that the water has risen just a little bit, and so we'll kind of keep an eye on that. We're going to check back in with you a little bit later. We've got a couple of other areas we want to look into. Colleen, thank you for the update. We'll be back in New Bern in just a moment.